Okay, so we go from the 8th. Yeah, so IMAX was. Look, I actually would like to try and go see all of the films in IMAX. Um, so I didn't for Spider-Verse because I had something come up. So, but definitely, I want to go back and see that again too. So let's um, let's move on to our next story, and this one is about the movie that is coming out the next week. And as I said, this is going to be all blockbusters, and it's going to be all movies coming out. So, and I'm talking about The Flash. The Flash is now one of those films that talk about long-awaited films. Okay, this, like the Batman of last year, was probably one of the, if not the most anticipated film. Once we got a release date, once we got a marketing, junket tour and everything else, and who's going to be in it and all of that. Um, this is an interesting film for a number of reasons. Number one, it's supposed to reset the DCU completely. Okay. Number two, we have an introduction of another character in Supergirl. Now, how are they going to fit that into, feature films, or are they going to keep this actress? Number three, you know, how much is this going to make? Because let's face it, while I am about numbers to a certain extent, this movie was extremely, extremely expensive to make at $200 million. Some say upwards of 250 million. Um, all of that being said, okay, one of the things when you have a film like this is about marketing and how you market the movie, and which age demographic. I mean, I was just in the last story talking about how 65% of the males between 61% of the males between 18 to 35 went to go or are going to go see um, Transformers. It's going to be the same market for this. So the reason I bring all of this stuff up, okay, is because the Hollywood Reporter has now come out with an article, and it talks about marketing, and it says marketing The Flash, no Ezra Miller, excuse me, but lots of Batman and TV spots. In late August 2022, Ezra Miller trekked to Warner Brothers for their first meeting with film chairs Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdy. The sit down followed months of legal and personal troubles for the actor, with a string of arrests and bad headlines threatening to derail The Flash, a $200 million feature Miller had been attached to since 2014. That's almost 10 years, guys. Think about that. A few weeks later, Miller apologized for their behavior, which included trespassing and choking a woman in Iceland in an incident captured on video, citing, quote, complex mental health issues. The question on everybody's mind that day in August, could Miller stay out of trouble? And could the headline and out of the headlines long enough for The Flash to enter safely into theaters? 10 months later, the answer appears to be yes. Miller has not only stayed out of the headlines, but the actor is nowhere to be found in the press as the film sprints to its June 16th release date. Instead of touting its star, the studio has put its focus on the film itself, hyping it to perhaps unrealistic levels. CEO David Zaslav and DC Studios head James Gunn have said that this is probably one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. And I actually have a thought about that. This has sparked bemused head shaking from some at Warner Brothers who question the wisdom of setting the bars so high for high expectations. It can't be the studio telling you it's that good. Your friends have to tell you it's that good, said one insider. And he's absolutely right about that. The first reviews, which dropped June 6th, are solid, but not the type of notices received by The Dark Knight, considering the feature film, the greatest film, which is considered the greatest film of the genre. And by the way, guys, if you want, go back and watch The Perfect Movie series. I just did The Dark Knight this last month. So go check that out. I talk all about why it is a perfect movie. And sequel. The Flash currently sports a 72% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, good enough to beat Joker, Warner Brothers' 2019 Oscar-winning $1 billion hit, which has a 69% score. And I'll get to that in a little bit too, because there's a little difference there. The studio is facing other headwinds that are affecting The Flash's projecting opening. A soft 70 to 75 million. Some superhero movie fatigue is real, and so is the perception that the next few DC movies, including August's Blue Beetle and December's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, are less urgent because Warner's is relaunching a slate of entirely new films with new actors to inhabit the superhero roles under the alger of DC Studios' Gunn and Safran. It is unclear how perception and how much is perception and how much is reality. Both executives have said some actors from the current universe could persist, and one who seems most likely is Zola Miranda, whose character Blue Beetle has close ties in the comics to Booster Gold. Gunn and Safran are planning their own Booster Gold show, and it's possible Blue Beetle could appear in it, depending on Beetle's reception this summer. So far as Warner's has Miller sidelined in the press in favor of director Andy Muschietti, Barbara Muschietti, who's a producer, and Supergirl actress Sasha Cowan, and as ambassadors of the film. On June 12th, On June 12th, Miller is expected to attend the film's premiere, which is likely to be branded a quote film event, one in which the stars walk the red carpet but answer no questions from journalists. The studios previously had experience in such hybrid event. In April of last year, it held the New York event for Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, which was marred by its own controversies around author J.K. Rowling's, the recasting of Johnny Depp, and even Miller, who was arrested in Hawaii days prior to the event. Instead of touting its star, the studio has enlisted famous champions, courting celebrities for advanced screenings, and such as Stephen King, as he's seen it. As a rule, I don't care much about superhero movies, but this one is special. It's funny, heartfelt, and eye-popping, he tweeted. So is Jaden Smith. Best movie ever, he wrote on Instagram. Tom Cruise was also treated to an advanced screening at his home. He did not tweet his review, but he's said to have liked it. In fact, the studio has mounted what one person describes as one of the most robust screening campaigns in recent memory to build buzz, with tens of thousands seeing it. Rival Studios Warner has been relying heavily on spots and trailers, running the latter during the NBA playoffs. One exec believes Warner's paid upwards of $14 million to the NBA alone, although that also includes a spot for Barbie. Warner Insider said the figure was lower. Of course, they're going to say it was lower. They are spending huge. This is a massive campaign, the executive familiar with those rollouts said. And if Warner can't bank on the Flash himself to bring audiences in, it is hoping that Batman, one of the biggest superheroes in the world, can, as well as the nostalgia factor for returning Michael Keaton. Both have heavily been profiled in the campaigns, and Keaton showed up for a fan event in London last weekend. But it's clear if it's resonating. Having both Keaton and Affleck back as Batman have drawn comparisons to the ground trod by the successful Spider-Man No Way Home. Unfairly, as Flash was to have originally aired in theaters before that movie. And on the flip side, moviegoers can feel like they just recently saw a Batman movie in the form of Robert Pattinson's The Batman released last year. They're not promoting Flash as a character because they can't, a rival studio exec said, saying regarding not putting too much focus on Miller. Normally, studios would have had a big movie star blanket late night talk shows, but due to the writer's strike, these shows have shut down. That has been a blow to the movies, but in the case of The Flash, it might be advantageous. Miller is inconspicuously absent from the shows, and co-stars don't have to field awkward questions about their troubled star. It has hurt everyone equally, said the rival exec, but in their case, it hurts them less. One bright spot for Warner's has been filmmaker Andy Muschietti, who is a favorite of the studio after the hit It films. Even if Miller's future with DC is an open question, Muschietti doesn't appear to be. He's the top choice to direct Batman's feature, The Brave and the Bold. Multiple sources tell THR. There is no script, and thus no formal commitment from the filmmaker until one materializes post-writer's strike. Okay, let's talk. Because there's some big things going on here. Okay. Number one, when you are a movie, okay, and you're not able to push your star, okay, even regardless of what it is, it really hurts you. It does. It hurts you. It's that simple. The fact that Ezra has gotten into all this trouble, you got to remember that this goes back. I was doing the podcast I was doing last year, I was talking about the same thing, except in this particular, podcast I was doing, it was more, they're on the run and everything else. All that being said, the fact that you can't market the star is huge. Now, what they're hoping on, what they're basing everything on, is that everybody loves Michael Keaton and, Batman 89, and they're going to go get a lot of, press. Yeah, so Metal says, wow, that's a lot to take in. It is. It is a lot to take in. So you have to understand, number one, they can't market the film the way they want because their star is in trouble. Okay. Number two, they're relying on guys like me, who are 47 years old, who remember Batman 1989, to go see this film. Number three, the fact that, yeah, they're not on the late night talk shows, but at the same time, they're nowhere to be found. And lastly, I'll say this much, okay? Muschietti put his foot in his mouth about a week ago, and I did the story here on the show, okay? The fact is, he came out and said, before the film was even opened, that if it were up to me, I wouldn't recast Ezra Miller. Now, that's a bold statement. Number one, because you don't have any control of that. Number two, because at the end of the day, it's James Gunn's decision, right? So he may want to keep Ezra, but James may say, no, hit the bricks. Number two, even if he has, so Muschietti has another, the piece alluded to, has Welcome to Derry coming out. It's supposed to be a prequel to the It things. I'm wondering if that wouldn't affect him long term, even if he is the favorite to go do The Brave and the Bold. And number three, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. That would be like Kevin Feige coming out, okay, and saying, you know what? So now I will say this much. Jonathan Majors has a court date next week. Okay. That would be like Kevin Feige coming out and saying, you know what, guys, no matter what happens with Jonathan Majors, we're going to keep him. Now, anybody knows of the allegations, and he is in none of the he isn't in the trailer. He is not in anything. So it really is it's tough to do. I gotta believe that this film is not, if that's true, a soft 70-75 million, I think it might be lower. And I've also said that I thought Shazam was going to be a litmus test. And I thought that it was going to really, if people didn't turn out for Shazam, which they didn't, okay, that was a disaster in itself, that I think that this is not going to do well. Now, that being said, okay, here's the interesting thing. So we just did the piece earlier that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse might actually win the weekend, this weekend upcoming, because of the lackluster showing of Transformers. It could. I'm not saying it will. But if this is a soft $70 to $75 million, it could definitely keep going. And I'm talking about Across the Spider-Verse. Because if this movie is not, you've had millions and millions and millions and millions of people. Okay, maybe not millions, tens of thousands of people see this movie. Number one, there's a chance of spoilers out there. Okay, that's something in itself. Number two, if all of those people that have seen the film, if you're trying to push this and shove this down fans' throats and say, go see this, go see this, go see this, and they say, oh, okay, it's not that good. What do you think is going to happen for the weekend? Those people have already seen it. So you're losing that much business. I really, really wonder. And the last thing I'll say is this. When you have, now Stephen King is a phenomenal author. I have no doubt about that. I do not take what he says at face value. I just don't. Not to say he couldn't develop characters and everything, but that's not, number one, it's not his genre. Number two, it's not like he is really, he's delved, he even said in the tweet, I don't really watch superhero movies. So how are you supposed to gauge how good or bad this is if you don't watch superhero movies? Okay? All of that being said, Tom Cruise, great, he liked it. But Tom Cruise saying, he likes it himself isn't going to drive people to the theater. So, as that exec said, the people have to say, yes, I like this movie. Not David Zaslav, not James Gunn. And the last thing I'll say is this. When you say it's, quote, one of the greatest of all time, I can come up with 8 movies. Now, first of all, I don't think there's ever a greatest of all time. Okay. There is a great of the generation. Okay. For a multitude of reasons. But let's play this out for a minute. Okay. You have, I can think of 8 movies off the top of my head. Okay. I'm talking about Black Panther. I'm talking about Avengers Infinity War. I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm talking about Logan. I'm talking about The Dark Knight. I'm talking about, there's just 5 right there. Okay. So you have to think now. And the other thing too is this is supposed to be reset. There's so many things wrong with this that I think they just need to cut the losses. They better really hope this makes bank overseas, because it will be lucky to recoup what it has here in the States. If it can make $200 million domestic, it will be lucky. It will be lucky. Anyways, guys, what do you think about the marketing of The Flash? Did you think they showed too much in the trailers? Did you think that they should be showing Ezra Miller more? Or do you think you're going to go to see this from Michael Keaton and everybody else? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to you.